Welcome back to Media Week. Let's get a check now on the media sector's performance on the share market this week. We're joined by Evan Lucas from IG. Evan, good afternoon. We were just discussing on the show Southern Cross Austereo and I guess the struggles they've been having in the radio ratings over the past week. They've also got this incoming boss. What's been the follow-through on the share market?
Yeah, and that's the interesting question, Ingrid. Look, Grant Blakely's been appointed. It was, announced pretty much last week. But the interesting thing is that once it was confirmed, got a really positive announcement at the start of the week, but that has not unfortunately held through. It's probably been caught up with the rest of the market's big sell-off, but he has got a hell of a job. There is more and more news coming out this week that the ratings, particularly for the old stereo assets, are still continuing to be under huge pressure from ARN, and that certainly clearly comes out in the surveys there. So although he got an initial reaction and he got around about a 5.5 cent jump in the share price, all that is gone and some more. So he's got a huge job to really turn around that business, particularly the radio network that is continuing to leak numbers and therefore continuing to leak advertising dollars.
Goldman Sachs has also been out with a note on the radio ratings. What are they saying?
Yeah, they have. And look, they said no material change to what came out in that third survey for this year, but what they do continue to say is what they believe from what they've seen in 1 and 2, that Fairfax is probably the most likely one to see still downside in terms of their numbers, particularly Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. They're the ones they're watching quite closely. It won't be a huge impact, but it certainly goes hand in hand with what Fairfax has been struggling to do, which is, rein in that sort of issue around cost. We saw last week TVNZ seeing some headcount being lost, and maybe they're suggesting that could be the case too. The one they really do point to, though, is ARN, and they clearly show you that they believe that will be the star performer in the radio network for 2015 on the calendar year.
All right, moving from radio to television, Credit Suisse has been talking up the prospects of 10 Network, saying perhaps they can grab some more market share from here. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and their title of it is obviously no longer the biggest loser, using the pun on the fact that obviously 10 is the player of the biggest loser. It is an interesting one. They believe their viewership will move up by 2.2% this year, from around about normally 20 to about 22.5, as they see 7 and 9 maybe just sort of finding it out and losing and becoming slightly stale in some of their programs. The interesting thing, though, is the market has almost completely ignored it. It too did not take any notice of the CS report at all, and it's also held for most of this week, which is really interesting considering there is more good news coming out of 10. There's no doubt you are seeing possibly a better change in terms of the advertising space. The one issue is that TV viewership numbers are very volatile and can change very quickly, and that is certainly the caveat in the note and what the market is probably telling you as well.
All right, Evan, we'll leave it there. Thanks as always for the update.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Evan Lucas there from IG. For more on that story, though, let's return to James Manning from Media Week, of course, in the studio with me now. James, we were just discussing 10, of course, with this analyst note saying it can potentially grab some more market share. What's your view? What's going to get 10 stronger?
Well, just a few more hits, but and build around those hits too, I guess. MasterChef's great, and it beats the competition on virtually all nights, but it's, prime time from 6 till midnight, so you want to try and fill it out with a few other things too, which it's easy to say, but
what else has it got going for it?
Well, Family Feud's doing okay at 6 o'clock, because they've chosen not to compete in the news space. The Project does okay at 7, not so good at 6:30, so they'd really love to boost that 6:30 half hour, again, a lot easier said than done. And then keeping audiences later into the evening. I mean, Madam Secretary's just come back on that about the US Secretary of State, the show about that US drama. Did pretty well for them last night. So, a few little things like that just to help those numbers. They'd love to get back into the AFL, get some more live sports rights. Again, you've got to dip into your pocket, and they've got ownership problems. But so that's their way forward, I guess.
Chief Executive seems pretty confident.
Yeah, well, they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
They're definitely getting back on the board. And as I mentioned to you earlier today, it's their revenue will pick up because of their success so far, but it takes a little while for that to catch up with your ratings. So next year we can see some more ad dollars coming in, I think, but they'll need to keep that going.
Well, moving on to the other network, Seven West Media has successfully raised that $300 million in cash. What do they want to do with it? What's the plan?
Well, they just say they want to keep them in their leadership position, because the last thing they want to do is telegraph the sports rights owners that, because we've got NRL negotiations coming up, AFL negotiations coming up, so you don't want to go out and shoot your mouth off and say, yeah, well, we've got some money in the bank and we'll be going very hard after these rights, so it just helps them keep their, as Tim Warner said, their leadership position, So
okay.
They're not going to be specific, but that's what it's all about. They need to lock away some good content, And it's, these days, the free-to-air thing, we always say it's all about live sport, your news offering, and event TV. It's really as simple as that, if you
Saving
like.
some cash potentially to make some bids for
Yeah.
sport. All right, Match Media Agency, we were saying this before, big sale for that one.
Yeah, it was. Publicis Group have come out and snapped up Match Media. I think it was probably the biggest independent media buying group in Australia. Pretty big business. Billings of around $170 million. Staff around 75 people. John Preston was the founder there. He's going to stay with the business. It's going to become part of Zenith Optomedia's Blue 449. It's going to be a global media buying business, if you like. They're going to have 4 hubs, one in North and South America, one each there, one in Europe, one in Asia. So, yeah, look, we'll just see what happens there. We might go and get John Preston in 1 week to talk a little bit about it and hear about their plans for Blue 449.
You mentioned Zenith Optomedia, and they've also been forecasting media consumption, haven't they? And internet obviously will be up, no surprises there.
Yeah, 10% I think is going to be the growth there. But I guess that's understandable when you look at go into the report a little deeper and saying it's people's ability to connect to the internet on mobile. As more people, as smartphone penetration just pushes a little bit higher, that lets those people engage, in commuting and stuff like that, where they had to rely on old media previously to consume media. 8 hours a day people consume media for, so it's pretty amazing, isn't it? That a lot of that day is spent consuming it. Newspapers going to be down about 4%. Newspapers and magazines. That's probably not too bad considering the sort of death watch we've all got on that sector. Outdoors going to be up a little bit, so it's good for the outdoor sector. TV is at about 38% at the moment. It's going to be down slightly. They predict in 3 years' time it could be down to about 35. So it's very slow. Slide, if you like, but it's still the dominant sector, TV, in terms of time spent viewing.
All right, moving on to Bauer Media, their recent acquisition of Beauty Heaven. Showing off a new design, but it's becoming a bit of a crowded space, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Lots of people out after this market. I mean, the biggest audiences are probably still some of the one-person operations, if you like, the YouTube bloggers, the beauty bloggers, people like that. People getting into this space have been 9MSN. They got in there with Honey. Mamma Mia's in there with Glow. We had Robin Foister on the show earlier this year talking about the carousel. So, yeah. Beauty Heaven, Bauer picked this up earlier this year. A responsive website is one of the things they talk about. Of course, making it ready for mobile use, so when you pick it up on your mobile, it's going to look just as good as if you were going to the site on your desktop.
All right, well, there you can see it on the screen. News Corp Australia, we spoke last week about the fact that it's closing down its MX commuter newspapers, but the CEO has been also talking about the continued investment in journalism. What's he been saying? Yeah,
Robert Thompson's been at a media conference in London with some of the analysts there saying, look, we have no plans to, step back and stop spending, if you like, on their quality journalism. And he talked about the trash traffic, if you like, of a lot of the internet sites. I'm not sure if he actually said BuzzFeed, but a lot of people have been using BuzzFeed as the example of sites that, put up cat videos and stuff like that and saying, look, he's been questioning the quality of the audience you're getting maybe on some of those sites with what News Corp can offer you through some of their, their journalism.
All right, let's move on, take a look at some of the ratings. We've looked at the radio ratings, now here's the television ratings for week 22, kicking it off with Free to Air.
We're going to see, I'm guessing we're going to see lots of MasterChef.
Oh, there you go. We've only got 6 to 10 there. Unfortunately, we're missing the top 5.
This is a backgammon, but yeah, that's not bad. 3 of the that 5 for MasterChef. Yeah, we're still doing, as we said, with 10.
Yeah, Married at First Sight, that 9 show actually doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's Nine's big hit show at the moment because Renault Rumble hasn't performed as well as they would like. So Married at First Sight is definitely carrying through this part of the year. They've got an encore screening on, I think, goes out on a Monday night. The new one, the encore screening, goes up on Tuesday. Does very well for them both nights. So, and they commissioned, I think we talked a couple of weeks ago, they commissioned a second season after the first show went to air.
And I'll tell you, I don't think we've got the top 5 there, but the top 2 was State of Origin, Game 1 and pre-game, of course. No surprises to see State of Origin. Yeah, I think you mentioned that last week, didn't you? The big numbers, and still 2 of those shows to go. And then Catching Malat also made it in as well, 7 News and 9 News. Sure. That was the top 5, but now we're on to subscription television, the top 5 non-sport. Game of Thrones, Open Slather, that new Foxtel show, doing quite well. Yeah, look, doing very well. That comedy, a big bold investment from Comedy Channel. They commissioned 20 episodes, so
they put some faith in the producers there. They're just doing fantastic business so far. Obviously, they're getting some good numbers. Game of Thrones, I think there's only 2 episodes left, Ingrid, so they go pretty quickly. There's only 10 every year, but it's doing very well for Showcase. Next Top Model, Wentworth, some other good Aussie content up there.
All right, not sure where our sport one's gone, but NRL, Raiders versus Broncos, AFL and NRL making that top 5 in terms
Yep, and some cricket back on Fox Sports this week. They're showing the Caribbean Test. I think it's 2 tests, Australia versus the West Indies. Fox Sports is the only place to see that.
There you go. All right, moving on to some awards, because
Sure.
Astra has announced its Industry Excellence Awards finalists. Gogglebox in there.
Yeah, look, it's not exactly the Logies, but this is for the people behind the scenes, okay?
Yep.
It's an industry award. So just to pay back some of the hard workers behind the scenes, people who work in marketing, stuff like that. So yeah, Gogglebox doing very well. 4 nominations, Gogglebox Australia. A format that's worked well elsewhere. It was a JV here between 10 and Foxtel, if you like. Foxtel used to show it one night, 10 again at the next night, did very well. 2 nominations for the BBC First team, the team that did the launch of BBC First. We've talked a lot about that on the channel here. Fantastic launch. Being rolled out, I think, as a model, a showcase that BBC is showing people around the world how well it did here, It could be adapted to other markets. And also Selling Houses Social, which was a social media campaign for Selling Houses Australia. That also got a couple of nominations.
All right, also want to talk about E! They've announced a new series to start next month. Of course, Caitlyn Jenner unveiled to the world this week.
It's when you didn't think there could be too much Kardashians. It's quite a spin-off, though, isn't it, from the Kardashians, if you like?
Jenner.
Yeah. But Caitlyn Jenner, the cover of Vanity Fair this week. Wow, did that create some ripples around the world? And
Broke
Vanity
the internet,
Fair,
as they said.
Yeah, Vanity Fair do it so well with their covers, and perfect timing. A day later. I don't think the magazine's out till June 9. So they just put out the cover, massive publicity. They released this video about the filming, the cover shoot, the Annie Leibovitz shoot. And then E! have announced, I think it's 8 episodes of this series to come, coming at the end of July. I'm guessing it might be the first of many series, Ingrid.
No doubt it will be very popular too.
And it's going to do fantastic business for them.
All eyes will be on
should mention, of course, the Sky News Business Channel had the, the last interview with Bruce Jenner earlier this year, and it also rated very well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for on this edition of Media Week. A big thank you, as always, to our co-host, James Manning from Media Week. From the team here, thanks for your company.